Hello, EVSC students. My name is Mrs. Haggard, and welcome to our classroom today. I teach at Lincoln School in the 6th grade, and we are here to talk about analyze development of text elements. That seems really scary when you first see it, but it's really not that bad, and you actually do it every single time that you do it. Now, there's two parts to this. There's a nonfiction part and there's a fiction part. We're going to be looking at the nonfiction part today. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go right on in. Okay, so nonfiction is informational text. Okay, so anything that is going to be informational text is the read for a purpose for gaining knowledge in a particular area. That means that you are trying to learn something. Okay, you're reading to learn. Okay. Whether it's history, science, or some other nonfiction study, so you can connect it with other subjects as well. Okay, informational text also focuses heavily on lives of profound individuals or memorable events or on ideas. That's kind of like Martin Luther King. We talked about in February Black History Month, so you probably talked about Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, the freedom rides, the boycotts, anything like that. That is going to be our connection today, what we're going to be looking at. Okay. Oftentimes, informational text can be combined elements. Okay, so you could be talking about an event and a person at the exact same time. Okay, just depending on the text. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the introductions of this. There's going to be 3 ways that it is going to, for our introductions. Okay, sometimes informational excerpts will begin discussing an individual's history of his or her earliest known history. So whatever they can find the earliest of. So if they know their birth date, they're going to be talking about the day that they were born at the very beginning. Okay, so that's what that means. Oftentimes, however, the individual will be introduced at a different time in his or her life with an overarching theme of his or her life. That means, that seems like a lot to even comprehend, but that is just saying that they're not starting of when they were born. They're starting at a different point in time. So if we were talking about Martin Luther King, they might start with the I Have a Dream speech instead of saying Martin Luther King was born. Okay. Informational excerpts that focus on particular concepts usually begin by stating an interesting fact related to the topic. So instead of saying he was born on this day or he had this big event happen to him, kind of like Martin Luther King, we'll go back to him. Instead of saying Martin Luther King was born on, or Martin Luther King said the I Have a Dream speech, they would say an interesting fact about him. Okay? Okay, giving more details to elaborate. Elaborate is one of your vocabulary words here today that you're going to have to remember. To elaborate means to go into more detail. Okay, so instead of saying he was great, he was good, he did a speech, we're going to get more details in there to make it pop, to make it more interesting. Okay. In addition to facts and important dates, most biographies and autobiography excerpts elaborate on the subject's life by including examples of the individual accomplishments. We're going to go right back to Martin Luther King. His time period, he won the Nobel Peace Prize during his time. So that would be something that they're talking about right there. Okay, illustrations. Now, you might think of illustrations as drawings, but this illustration is all in your mind. It's a picture in your mind that they're using words to bring that picture together. So another method illustration of a person's life is through anecdotes. That is another vocabulary word. Anecdotes is a retelling of a particular interesting or profound event. Okay? So I'm going to give you just a second to either write that one down, because that might be a new vocabulary word for you, or it might be something different, or you might know it, but it's going to be very, very important for you to remember. So I'm just going to give you just a second to write that down. So an anecdote is a retelling of a particular interesting or profound event. All right, so if you did not get that down, you can always go to the EVSC Facebook page and replay this and go ahead and write that down. Pause it and write it down if you want to get that more information later. All right, so now we're going to apply it to a text. This is going to be a short story, or it's going to be an excerpt. So this is from a bigger story, but it's going to be brought down to a smaller passage. So right now I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to discuss the answers, because I know that you're saying, why are you giving us the answers? Because I want you to understand where we're coming from with these answers, okay? The Paralympic Games are great because they offer athletes with a disability to compete on a world stage. In 1948, a sports competition was held for World War II veterans with spinal cord injuries. In 1960, after the Olympics in Rome, the first official Paralympic Games, Summer Games took place. The first Paralympic Winter Games were played in 1976. And in that year, the competition was open to athletes with disabilities other than spinal cord injuries. Today, athletes who are visually impaired or blind, have amputated limbs, spinal cord injuries, or motor impairment due to stroke, brain injury, or cerebral palsy can enter the Paralympics. Furthermore, athletes are grouped by ability, not by medical classification. So that is so interesting. We can find a lot of new interesting facts that we have, and we're going to see how they looked at the details to make it more interesting, to make us engaged with it. Okay, so our first question is, how are the Paralympic Games introduced in this section? Okay, so remember what we talked about, how they're introduced. They can tell an interesting fact or an opinion with it to bring it in. We can talk about someone's life or something that happened within their life. So right here, if we look at the very first sentence, the Paralympic Games are great because they offer athletes with disability the chance to compete on a world stage. Now they're giving an opinion and then a fact right behind it. So kind of like when your teacher was talking about claim and your claim, you have to have your opinion, and then you have to back it up with a fact to make it you more reliable, to make sure that you get someone on your side. We're looking at this word right here, great. Great is their opinion. Because they put because at the end, they're backing up an opinion with a fact. So that's why they are introducing this with a fact and an opinion. Okay? So elaborate on how the text illustrates this. Okay? They put the text uses sequencing order to illustrate the progression of allowing disabled athletes to compete. It will begin with the sports competition in 1948 that sparked the idea for the Paralympic Games, then discuss the first summer and winter games, and concludes with the expanded list of eligible athletes today. What we're looking for right here is we're going to see, okay, is this a cause and effect? Are they using dates in order? If they're using dates in order, that is the sequencing. We already see that they're putting those dates in there, and they're putting everything in order from the start of the Paralympic Games to what it is like today. We'll see if this actually works for me right now. All right, well, it looks like that is all done for today. So I thought we had another question, but that's okay. We're gonna just go with the flow here. So just remember, let's go ahead and go back and review. Going way back here. Remember the introduction, so let's go back and review this, and then we're gonna go to illustrations, and then I'll let you guys go to work on your assignment for your teacher. Okay, so sometimes informational excerpts begin by discussing an individual's life from his or her earliest known history. If they don't know their birth date, then they will go to the closest date to that. So the very first date that they can find proof on, okay? Or it could be just a different time period, different time period of their life. Remember when we talked about Martin Luther King. They're not going to start with his birthday. He was born on this day. They're going to start with the Nobel Peace Prize or the I Have a Dream speech to introduce Martin Luther King. And then and then an interesting fact. Okay, so remember the interesting fact can have an opinion in it, or it doesn't have to. But we're going to be looking for that as well. Okay, we're going to go back to the illustrations. Okay, remember the anecdotes. The anecdotes are very, very important. There's a picture in your mind for nonfiction. They're taking those words and they're putting a picture in their mind. It's not like a nonfiction story where they're just going to have a picture right there for you. Or they're going to give so much detail that you're going to actually know what the person looks like, what they sound like, what they do. Okay? You guys have to inference that within the passage. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, I hope that you have learned something today. If you do not have an assignment like this for your teacher, what I want you to do is I want you to give me a 3, 2, and 1. 3 facts that you learned today, 2 interesting facts that you thought were wow-worthy, and 1 question for your teacher. Again, that's a 3 facts that you learned, 2 facts that you found interesting, and 1 question for your teacher if you do not have an assignment like this, because today they want to know what you learned from this webcast or on WNIN. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day and keep up the hard work. I know your teachers are really proud of you and they miss you, and we hope that you guys are staying safe and healthy.